If you've been following our channel for a while now, then you'll probably agree that we tend to talk a lot about garlic. We've shown you how we built our garlic beds, prepared the cloves for planting, and how we put them in the ground. We built a dibbler, worked out the spacing, and covered our beds with mulch for winter. We've talked garlic shoots, scapes, leaves, and bulbs, and we've even shown you how we cure the garlic by hanging the plants to dry. But one thing we've never talked about is how we actually use the garlic and how we prepare it for long-term storage. So today we're going to begin tackling both of those topics simultaneously by making garlic salt. The basic recipe calls for 1 part garlic to 2 parts salt. However, this ratio can vary a bit depending on your personal tastes and the potency of the garlic. But don't worry, it's easy to tweak after the fact, so let's just get started. First of all, we break apart the bulbs and peel the cloves. Now, there are many tricks to speeding this up, but we usually stick to the good old reliable smash it with a knife method. Once the skins are removed, we slice off the little root ends as well. This is probably unnecessary, but they can sometimes be a bit on the tough side, and we want our resulting garlic salt to have a consistency which is, well, consistent. Because otherwise, we may receive incessant complaints about our constant inconsistency, and nobody wants that. Anyway, once we've peeled enough garlic, it's time for the salt. And as far as we know, just about any salt will do in a pinch, but personally we recommend pink Himalayan. They all taste the same, but pink Himalayan is far less processed and contains way more trace minerals. It comes in various grind levels, from coarse to fine, but we prefer medium, because it seems to give the best final results. Okay, now that we have all the ingredients ready, let's toss them in the food processor and give them a spin. The food processor is nice because it minces the garlic and mixes it evenly with the salt all in one step. But if you don't have one, then a chef's knife and a bit of elbow grease will work fine too. It just takes a little longer. Now, you'll know it's done when it looks and feels kind of like wet sand. For us, this usually takes about a minute. Next, pour the garlic onto a baking sheet lined with parchment paper and spread it out in a thin layer. Then pop it into the oven and bake it for 10 to 20 minutes on the lowest temperature setting, probably somewhere between 150 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit. You can also use a dehydrator for this, but honestly the oven works just as well, so let's not get too fancy. Oh, and this would be a good time to give the food processor a quick rinse and dry, but don't bother using soap because we're not quite done with it yet. Now, it's a good idea to check the salt every couple of minutes or so, just to make sure that it doesn't burn, but once it seems hard and dry, you're good to go. After it cools, you'll probably notice that it's formed into solid chunks, but never fear, there's still one more step. Finally, toss the chunks back into your dry food processor and give it another spin. This will break up all the chunks and bring it back to a salt-like texture. And that's it. Now you can pack the finished garlic into an airtight jar and store it someplace cool and dry. But as usual, we also have a few extra notes to pass along as well. First of all, the jars. Because when it's just for ourselves, we usually just store our salt in a standard mason jar. But you can easily dress it up a bit if you're selling it or giving it away as gifts. There are plenty of fancier jars online, and believe it or not, we've even had decent luck at the dollar store. Next, we found that the salt can scuff up the food processor a little bit, and I suspect that it may eventually wear down the blade as well. It shouldn't be a problem if you're only doing a few batches, but if you plan to do a lot, then you may want to consider buying an inexpensive or second-hand food processor specifically for this purpose. And finally, as I mentioned, this recipe is super easy to customize, so if you've got a bunch of salt and a bit of time, then why not experiment by adding other fresh herbs and spices? Just have fun with it and taste it as you go. One of our favorite recommendations is to add a few drops of liquid smoke. You should be able to find it at your local grocery store, and it gives such an amazing flavor. And if you really want to impress, try adding a bit of maple syrup or maple extract as well. Anyway, just have fun with it and get creative. And until next time, thanks for watching, and see you soon.